Department 81 is now in session. The Honorable Mark E. Window, Judge. Exactly.
Good to see everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back to Department 81, People versus Robert Durst. Mr. Durst is present, Mr. Chestnut, Mr. DeGuerin, Mr. Ray.
Your Honor, I have a little medical report for the day. Mr. Lewis is ill.
He's
not going to be with us, and Mr. DeGuerin cut himself shaving.
Okay.
People's injury report is clear today, Your Honor.
Okay, no injuries on the people's side.
It's been early. It's early.
Yeah, Mr. Lewis was sneezing yesterday, and so.
Mr. Bailey informed me he pinched his finger this morning. I was premature with you.
All right, but Mr. Lewin, Mr. Bailey, and Mr. Miata, Mr. Anderson, Mr. Millius, Detective Shamlian, all present. Our jurors and alternates are present. And do you have a stipulation regarding exhibits from the last witness who was heard?
Yes, I conferred with the court clerk in the break, and pursuant to the stipulation I had read earlier, which is now marked as People 20B, the conditional examination of James Varian. In the conditional examination, what had been referred to as People 7 has now been marked People's 20C. What has previously been marked at the conditional exam as People's 8 is now marked 20D, and what was previously marked as People's 9 at the conditional examination is now marked at this trial as People 20E, and I'll provide a copy of this to the defense as well.
All right, thank you.
Is this correct?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now the people may call their next witness.
People call James McCormack, Your Honor.
Step out with permission, please.
Yeah.
Please come stand in the witness stand here, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you're about to give and the cause not pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
Please be seated. Please just pull your seat a little bit closer to the mic, please. Thank you so much. Please state and spell your first and last name.
James McCormack, James McCormack.
Thank you.
You may proceed, Mr. Lewin.
Good morning, Mr. McCormack.
Thank you.
Mr. McCormack, when I say the name Kathie Durst, can you tell me who that is?
She's my baby sister. Always was and always will be.
And can you tell me what the age difference was between the two of you?
7.5 years.
And were you the only two children in the family?
No.
Can you describe the age of your siblings?
Yeah, well, I can tell you. I had an older sister, still have an older sister, Carol. Then I was next. I was born in 1944. Then my sister, Virginia, she's the third. She's 72 now, I think. And then Mary, and then Cathy. Cathy would have been 69 approximately.
And the difference in age between your sister Mary and your sister Cathy?
Approximately 5 years.
I want to show you a picture. I believe it's going to be People's 21, Your Honor.
Yes.
Do you recognize who's in that photo?
Yes.
And who is that?
It is my baby sister Cathy sitting in the rowboat that my dad bought and the motor that I bought.
And any idea when approximately this would have been taken?
early 60s. I had graduated from high school and, earned some money for my night job, day job, whatever you want to call it, extra job. And applied it as a graduation gift to an outboard motor.
Cathy was born June 15th, 1952, is that correct?
That's correct.
And any idea where this photo was in fact taken?
That photo was taken on Lake Tidiascan, Hyde County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Hawley.
I'm gonna make a wild guess that it might help to spell it for the court reporter.
Tidiascan, T-E-D-D-U-S-K-U-N-G, Tidiascan. It's an Indian.
They've got funny names in Pennsylvania. I know Wissahickon.
Well, Pennsylvania itself is how many ends?
So, Mr. McCormack,
I'll spell that for you.
can you describe, growing up, what was your relationship like with Cathy? Were the two of you close?
I would consider it close. Yes, she was the baby of the family. My dad loved her. First time I ever held an infant was 1952, late June. My mom had come home from the hospital and I was out of school. I had to be out of school because it was the middle of the day, late June. The sun was off to my right shoulder. Mom comes down the stoop, we call them stoops, in St. Albans house, and put Cathy in my arms. And I admittedly still remember being like in a clumsy state, and I probably gave Cathy back to my mom. That was the first time I was engaged with Cathy, and thereafter she was just the baby of the family.
Is it fair to say that within your family that Cathy was not only the baby, but kind of the star academically of the family?
Yes, she always got great grades in grade school. She went up to New Hyde Memorial School and got good grades there. She wasn't called to a college career because in those days, girls going to college were, not necessarily the thing to do. That's changed, thankfully.
Let me stop you.
Yes.
When she graduated high school, do you know what she ended up doing?
Yes, she had been working a part-time job during her high school years at Dr. Pupilla's dental office. She became a dental hygienist.
Could you spell that doctor's name?
He passed away, but P-U-P-I-L-L-A, Pupilla.
And Mr. McCormack, I don't think I asked you this. Where did Cathy grow up? What area?
Well, she initially grew up in St. Albans on 202nd Street where we lived. And in 1952, my dad moved our family, to New Hyde Park, and that's where she grew up until she moved into New York City.
And New Hyde Park is where?
It's one of the first communities across the line going from Queens, Floral Park, in Belrose, into, it's a town or a community in Queens, and then you go across the line and it's Floral Park and then New Hyde Park. It's in Nassau County, Long Island.
So she grew up in Long Island?
Correct, Long Island would be the way to describe it.
And in terms of your family background, if I were to ask you, did Cathy grow up wealthy or middle class or lower middle class? How did she grow up?
I would call it middle class to, a working class family. We all had jobs. I had a high school career that included basketball, baseball, and grocery store work.
And she lost her father at a young age, is that correct?
That's correct.
And how old was she when that happened?
She was 14. Cathy was 14 in April of 1967.
And you said that after Cathy graduated from high school, she ended up becoming a dental hygienist. Where did she end up doing that?
She started in Dr. Pupilla's office. She learned it on the job. She didn't have to think she went to a school that I'm aware of. Yeah.
When she graduated high school, did she stay in Long Island?
For the first few months, and then her and a friend, Cheryl, Catran-Bowen.
Can you spell that too?
I can.
There's going to be no Smiths or Jones.
No, unfortunately. My memory is modest for the old days, anyway. Catran-Bowen is C-A-T-R-A-N-B-O-N-E. Catran-Bowen.
And the two of them moved to where?
The two of them moved to New York City. They found an apartment on East 51st Street, I believe it was. And they moved in and started their dental hygienist jobs in New York City.
And was that, at that time, was that in Manhattan?
That was Manhattan, yes. New York City is Manhattan.
Did Kathie also do some modeling work as well a little bit?
Yes, when Cathy was still in New Hyde Park, teenager, she was very good looking, very, you know, she learned a lot about grooming herself. Her sisters were very helpful in that regard. And since I was the driver in the family, two of my sisters already moved out and started their families. I would take Cathy on Sundays to modeling gigs. They call them runway gigs, where she wears gowns up and down the runway on Sunday mornings into the early afternoons. Mostly in a place called Roosevelt Field and or the Manhasset Mall. They were very upscale stores there. And Cathy, you know, made a few bucks doing that. And that's how she earned it.
Mark, a photo of people's 2022. Do you recognize this photograph?
Yes, I do.
And is that your sister Cathy?
That's my sister Cathy.
Any idea when approximately that would have been?
That would have been taken probably after she came back from Vermont with Bob, and she was cohabitating what they used to call the Katona house, who shared between Cathy and Bob and Douglas and Suzanne.
So we're a little. So this photograph's a little bit ahead of where we are in the story by a couple of years, maybe. Is that
Yeah,
right?
probably. That's the kitchen area.
When I say the name Robert Durst, is that the name that you know?
Yes,
And do you see the person that you know as Robert Durst in court today?
yes, I do.
Can you please indicate where he's located and what he's wearing?
May I point to him?
Yes.
He's sitting right there next to Mr. DeGuerin. He's wearing a blue blazer, white dress shirt, no tie. He's got his typical large rimmed glasses,
Okay.
but that's Bob.
Identifying the defendant in this case, Robert Durst.
Can you tell me, how was it that you originally met Bob Durst and under what circumstances?
It would be the early 70s. I was made aware that Cathy was dating a guy from New York City. And my brother-in-law, Tommy, who was by that time had moved into New York City, arranged for a get-to-know-me bro kind of meeting at a tavern on the East Side. And when I came into the East Side, I got to meet Bob probably for the first time, and just try to have a conversation, kind of a get-to-know-you kind of deal. Because, it was all new to me.
Tom is Mary's husband, is that right?
Yeah, Tom Hughes is Mary's husband, correct.
And when you first met Mr. Durst, was that with Cathy or was that separate from Cathy?
Separate from Cathy. It was just a guy's night out kind of thing,
And can you describe what your relationship was like with Mr. Durst at the beginning?
It was more an occasional social, but not a, let's go out hunting kind of thing, relationship or friendship.
And is it fair to say that your initial impressions of him was that he was intelligent and charming?
Oh, yeah, well, he was intelligent. I wouldn't call it charming. I thought, he might have used the phrase that I thought he was shy. He didn't engage in conversations or initiate conversations, so I thought he was just shy.
Do you recall previously stating that your sister was attracted to his dry sense of humor?
Yes, I think that would be a fair statement.
And did you also notice that he had a dry sense of humor?
Yeah, it was kind of, if someone had tripped, he would laugh at it. That kind of sense of humor, if you want to call that dry.
In terms of your interaction with Mr. Durst at the beginning of the relationship, was there any issue for you at that point of time with your sister dating him?
No, I had no issues. In fact, I remember having Bob come out to New Hyde Park, and from there, he and a bunch of my buddies at the time, we were all bachelors, went fishing down on the South Shore on a party boat, head boat they used to call them. And Bob got violently sick. Him and another friend spent most of that boat ride puking into the bucket.
Did Mr. Durst also get to know the rest of your family?
Over time, yes.
The early years with your sister and Mr. Durst, were you in contact with them when they ended up going to Vermont?
Yes. When they went to Vermont, obviously we stayed in touch telephonically, but we stayed in touch. And I made 2 separate trips to Vermont. The last one I do remember vividly, going up over the Christmas holidays in 1972 to help Cathy and Bob remove cars and furniture or whatever, because they were leaving that place to return to New York at the request of the Durst family.
Can you describe when Bob Durst would interact with your family? Can you describe what that was like?
I would call it rude.
Specific, please, rather than broad, general. Over broad.
Overruled.
I would describe Bob's decorum, before my mom especially, and my sisters and I, as bordering on rude.
Can you explain what you mean by that, please?
He'd come into the, say at the dining room table, and he'd just belch as though, that was the normal thing to do, and we weren't raised that way, so I would call that rude.
Did he ever attempt to say, excuse me, or to acknowledge the inappropriateness?
No. And I still remember at least one time, probably many times, Cathy would actually make the excuse for him.
And as you were watching Mr. McCormack, did this appear to be something involuntary, or did this appear to be, from what you were watching over the times you saw it, something intentional?
I would say it was pretty much intentional. I mean, let's face it, if we all have to belch, we kind of restrain ourselves.
Were you aware in terms of how Mr. Durst was with money, based on your experience?
Well, going back to when I first met him at the West Side, or the East Side Tavern, I bought the first round. I bought the second round. I believe Tommy bought the third round, and Bob never bought a round.
And I'm going to assume that you and your brother-in-law, Tom, did not have the financial resources that Mr. Durst did at that time?
No, Tommy was, I guess, a probationary fireman or a rookie in the New York City Fire Department, and I, at that time, did not have a substantial job.
Did you ever try to engage Mr. Durst in conversation about his work or about finances?
Well, I wanted to get ahead in my business career. I hooked up with a company called International Harvester, and I wanted to learn because you learn from people who have been there in our school. And I was told at one time that Bob had a degree from UCLA in a higher degree in economics, because that was my field when I was at St. John's University. And up at the Katona House, I had started a conversation, and it went nowhere. Almost as though, deflect, because he didn't have a degree, as I came to know later on.
Did you ever have the opportunity to observe Bob Durst and Douglas Durst together?
Not frequently. In a large social gathering, they would be at both opposite ends of the room. They both shared that house in Katona. Doug and Suzanne and his children were in the back of the house. There was a suite of bedrooms or whatever. And Bob and Cathy were to the left of the main room, and they had their own bedroom with a fireplace, which I thought was pretty cool. But they never came out and joined themselves together at the the dining room table.
Even back then, were you able to pick up how did the relationship between the two brothers appear to be?
Aloof, strained. I never witnessed any violence or anything like that, but I do know that they were just, not brotherly. They didn't purposely enjoy.
Over time, Mr. McCormack, did you notice a change in the relationship between your sister and Mr. Durst?
Well, over time, when they first met in the first year in Vermont, I witnessed what I thought to be a lot of love between the two of them. And then when they came back and they got married, there was a lot of love between the two of them. In fact, I remember Bob and Cathy had bought a Dodge van, They used to have a cross-country, vehicle, and there seemed to be a lot of love. He was showering her with, the benefits of his situation. So there was a lot of love, and Kathie spoke warmly about him, that Bob is this, he had this great deal when he was in San Francisco, coming back, because I had left my job, and I went on the road myself. It was the thing to do, I guess, in the hippie areas. And we interacted in Denver on my way out and their way back, and I still remember that Kathie was bragging that Bob made this great buy of silver coins. He bought them cheap in San Francisco and sold them high in Denver, She was proud of him for whatever,
Was there an event that you're aware of that appeared to change the tenor of the relationship?
The relationship, seemed to get strained in, I guess, mid-70s, 75, 76 timeframe in that area. I didn't know why, but they just seemed to be tense. And I've since come to know about the situation that Bob forced on Kathie.
Let me stop you for a moment.
Yes.
Was Kathie a family-oriented person?
Oh, absolutely.
And did you become aware at some point that Kathie had wanted to have children?
Yes, that was the family culture that she was raised in.
And you come from a family of 5, is that right?
That's correct.
And all of your siblings have children, is that correct?
Yes.
I want to show you what I'm going to mark as people's 23.
Yes.
Do you recognize this photograph?
Yeah, that's Kathie right dead center. Christopher's right to her, sitting on her lap.
You don't have to name everybody in the
Okay.
picture, but you're saying Kathie's in the middle, is that right?
Kathie's in the middle, and that's me on the upper left as you're looking at it. 2 Kathy's, right?
And is this fair to say this is McCormack family and children and grandchildren?
Having a good time. My mom is on the floor, stretched out.
Any idea approximately when this picture would have been taken?
This would have been taken probably early 70s, like 74-ish, 75.
Did Kathie ever express to you a desire herself to have children?
Not overtly, but I know she had that desire. It was just a family culture that she was from.
You had, strike that. You indicated you became aware of a situation with Mr. Durst and Kathie in the mid-70s that you said changed the relationship. Can you describe how the relationship changed?
Kathie, the situation, can I describe it?
Sure.
Kathie was forced to have an abortion. Kathie was forced to have an abortion under threat of a divorce. And when that happened, Kathie really just refocused her energies not to maintain the love that she once had for Bob, or to restore it, but to focus it on herself, and not to be selfish that way, but just to take the gifts that she had, the intelligence, the passion to learn, the desire to be there for other people, especially in the healthcare industry. So she completed her pre-med nursing degree at Western Connecticut, and then she segued that to wanting to become a doctor, so she got admitted to Albert Einstein College of Medicine.
And Kathie graduated in 1978, correct?
She graduated from the at Western Connecticut. She had the nursing degree pre-med, or prerequisite.
And then she started medical school,
Yes.
and that's in the Bronx, is that correct?
Yeah, it's in the Bronx. I don't know where in the Bronx, but it's in the Bronx.
Can you tell me, in terms of the way that you would see yourself, Mr. Durst, treating your sister after the relationship changed, can you describe what you would see? And I'm going to get to the incident, the holiday incident later, but I just want to ask you, just in general.
Bob would be more curt dismissive of her points of view. He certainly wasn't showing any sense of humor by that time. And Cathy was, kind of stubborn and tolerated that abuse.
Would Cathy still come over and interact with your family?
Cathy would visit the family thereafter, pretty much one-on-one with the family, my sisters. Bob didn't come too often except for the holiday, the holidays that were kind of like the family gathering. Typically at my mom's, because my mom never had a driver's license.
And can you describe, was there an incident that occurred at one of these holiday gatherings?
Yes.
Can you please describe, to the best of your memory, what happened?
Yeah, there was a Christmas gathering at my mom's house. We had our sit-down dinner, and then the sit-down dinner led to an after-dinner cocktail. We were in my mom's living room, and I was on this end of the couch, and Cathy was on this end of the couch.
Indicating opposite ends of the couch for the record.
Opposite ends of the couch, as close as I am to this gentleman. And opposite me was my grandma. She was Grandma Soft. She was going to be 90 that year. And Bob had, started the process of going home, but he had to warm up the diesel. It was a 210 diesel, which is a diesel that, you had to put half a gallon of gasoline into the diesel fuel just to keep it from freezing in the wintertime. So he went out to warm up the car, and he was kind of like impatient. And Cathy was sitting there with a glass of red wine. I had a bottle of beer. And unfortunately, I probably will be thinking of this till the day I die. But the next thing I know, Bob insisted that she get up. And Cathy wanted to continue a conversation because the glass wasn't empty with myself and my grandma. And, he got impatient. He went out, and then he came back in very quickly, walked over as quickly as a very quick step, grabbed Cathy by the top of her head like that, and yanked her, and she went with the yank.
Let me stop you,
Yes.
Mr. McCormack. You've seen the movie All Good Things, is that correct?
I've seen it at least once, yeah.
And the scene of that incident is depicted in the movie, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a representation of the incident, yeah.
And in general terms, obviously, those are actors and actresses.
Yes.
Does that image, does that depiction, does that accurately, to the best of your memory, depict what happened?
It's close, yeah. I mean, what I'm depicting right now is what happened. I was
Okay.
there.
Did either you or your brother-in-law or any of the men who were in the house, did anybody do anything to try to stop what was happening?
No, the way it happened, it was so spontaneous and unexpected. I mean, you really go into a temporary state of shock, like, it's like a lightning bolt. And the next thing you know, Cathy got up and was going with Bob, and they went literally to the door when I'm still sitting there. Like, it's shock, literal shock. And Cathy's coat was on the bench by the door. It's where Mom used to keep where you store your coats when you come to visit. She grabbed the coat and she turned and she said something to the effect, "It's all right, Jim." And then she went out the door, and that was the end of that.
During this incident, did the defendant say anything?
No. Other than "we're going," or words to that effect.
To the best of your memory, can you describe if he appeared to be, what his mental state was, strike that? How did he appear in terms of his demeanor?
Demeanor was just he was impatient, and he had enough of the happy times that the McCormacks typically celebrated on holidays and other events. He just didn't want to be a part of it anymore.
Did he seem angry?
I would call it anger, borderline anger, but certainly anger at Cathy not jumping when he said jump.
Did he seem out of control, or did it seem
No,
like...
he knew exactly what he was doing, what he wanted to accomplish. That's my observation.
Did Cathy ever confide in you? And I'm not asking you what she said, I'm asking, she confide to you about the domestic violence in the marriage?
Cathy, indicated at times that she had some issues, but not the violence, not what I witnessed. And I wish she had, but unfortunately, she didn't.
You're now aware, Mr. McCormack, that there was violence in the relationship.
I'm
correct?
aware of that now, yes.
Let me ask you, knowing your sister, does it surprise you that she did not confide in you what was going on?
She might have feared, and this is a speculation, but it's the truth, that I would react, what a hot-tempered Irishman brother might react. I don't know for certain, but I'll tell you right now, had I known more of what I know now, then I may have been, acted differently.
Your sister was very successful at almost everything she did, is that correct?
Absolutely. She was a successful model. She was good in school. She got her job, as a dental hygienist, like literally within a day or two.
In your experience and in knowing your sister, do you think in any way that she was embarrassed or humiliated by what was going on?
Sustain.
Do you think that your sister would have wanted to confide in you the details of why her marriage was failing?
Speculation.
I believe it's.
Overruled. You may answer.
The question again, please?
Do you think, knowing the relationship between you and your sister, that she would have felt comfortable discussing with you the failures in her relationship with the defendant?
Her willingness to talk to me, I think, was hampered by her demands at school, her access to her sisters and my mom. She talked a lot to them, from what I understand. I was myself, she respected my situation. I had a brand new job, brand new house, beautiful wife, and a baby less than 30 days away. So her ability to access me was limited by, things that were on my side of that equation.
When they met, Cathy was 19 years old, is that right?
That's correct.
And the defendant was 11 years older, is that right?
I believe so, yes.
Did you notice any change in who Cathy was, in her confidence level, at the time she met the defendant at 19 versus, for instance, by the time she was graduating from nursing school?
By the time Cathy was graduating from nursing school, she had grown up, grown smarter, and I believe she had grown past Bob intellectually, emotionally, and with a purpose. Cathy had a purpose. She was going to be a caregiver. She was so driven by, wanting to be first a nurse and then a doctor, and to care for people. She had a heart of a doctor.
Did you ever see Mr. Durst in any way express any support for any of his wife's accomplishments?
No.
Did you ever see him in any way express that he was proud of her?
No.
In the way that you saw Mr. Durst interacting with your sister, did it appear to you that one of them was controlling the relationship?
Excuse me, that's leading and it's also suggesting.
It's not leading.
In just a moment. Overruled.
Do I answer the question?
You may answer the question.
Okay, thank you. Good. Cathy and Bob's relationship went from, a mutual love to a situation where Bob would control her time. I've defined the abuse that I've witnessed over time, if I can so speak, and on 6 levels. First, there was an emotional abuse. Then there was social abuse. There was intellectual abuse. There was economic abuse. This is all controlling abuse. Abuse is control. Ultimately, there was physical abuse.
When Cathy eventually went to medical school, where were you living at that point in time?
Depends on where my van was, I guess is a good way to describe it. I was kind of a roustabout hippie, but would spend time with my mom's house in New Hyde Park. I had lived in Chicago when Kathy and Bob went on their honeymoon, and they stopped at my Chicago apartment for a couple of days. I had a girlfriend, I lived with her down on Long Island for 6 months or so. So I was kind of a, a gypsy.
By your statement, it doesn't sound like you were spending a lot of time in Manhattan, is that right?
No, only for just brief visits.
Did Kathy ever talk to you directly about the divorce?
I do not recall that, no.
Were you aware that your sister was assaulted in the approximately September of 1981 by Mr. Durst in the terrace incident that was also depicted in Albany?
Foundation.
Sustained.
Your Honor, Mr. Durst has already admitted...
I'm sorry, for this, well, actually, foundation.
Your Honor, the defendant has already admitted...
Okay, is he aware? No, that's different.
May you answer the question, Your Honor?
You may answer this question.
Okay, at the time I was not aware, I became aware.
And were you aware that and I'm asking at the time, that on January 6, 1982, that Kathie Durst sought treatment at Jacoby Hospital?
At the time I was not aware.
Were you aware back then, yourself, of any other specific acts of violence other than the one that you witnessed at your mom's house?
By Robert Durst,
Yes.
I became aware that he had...
No, I'm asking if you were by aware, meaning at the time where you were present. That'd be the first question.
No, I was not present.
Did you end up becoming aware of the situation involving Peter Schwartz?
Yes.
Here's a,
But if he became aware, that part is all right, but he obviously can't describe it, he wasn't there, it was hearsay. So
No,
go ahead.
I'm not
He's aware of
Yeah.
it, that's fine, go ahead.
And you were not present for that, is that correct?
I was not present for that, no.
And when did you become aware of the Peter Schwartz incident?
My sister Kathy told me
And when would that have been?
in January of 1982,
And that's going to be the month that she disappears?
at the end of that month, yeah.
And at the time that your sister disappears, can you tell me, was she excited about graduating from medical school?
She was excited about graduating from medical school. She was working on a party for my grandma's 90th birthday party. She was collaborating with Gilberta and my cousin Chuck. So she had a forward look.
And what did she say specifically, to the best of your memory, to you regarding her plans for being a physician?
Well, because she was denied the ability to be a mom, she wanted, I think, to be a pediatrician and to give care and comfort to the moms-to-be and their babies thereafter.
At any point in time, did she in any way mention to you that she was planning on voluntarily disappearing?
Absolutely not.
It has been suggested that your sister, in essence, was a drug addict at the time she disappeared, was heavily using drugs, etc. Was that your experience?
No.
And as far as you know, was your sister on course to graduate?
Yes.
And do you know, had she made plans discussed with you where she intended to do her residency?
Not specifically. The only comment she made to me, we used to call them these lakeside chats. We'd go down at the lakefront of the Lake Truesdale home, and we'd talk about everything, family dynamics, and her plans and her doctor dreams. But the one part of the hospital, at least for her residence, if you want to call it that she really enjoyed, don't ask me why, but this is my sister, was the emergency room.
Do you remember when the last time you saw or spoke to her prior to her disappearance?
It would have been over the Christmas holidays of 1981 going into 1982. She came out to my home in East Northport and spent 2 nights, kind of a chance for her to, kind of decompress, get away from the stress that she was dealing with. And I was working in New Hyde Park, and I'd be gone at 7 o'clock in the morning, get back at 7 o'clock at night. But she spent most of that time, my wife Sharon, who was pregnant with my daughter Elizabeth.
Was that your first child?
Yes,
And when was your daughter Elizabeth born?
January 25th, 1982,
So your daughter Elizabeth would have been 6 days old when Kathy disappeared.
when she disappeared.
Was Kathy excited? Did she express to you that she was excited about the impending birth of your daughter?
Absolutely, it fell right into her wheelhouse in terms of pediatrician. And we received a tremendous, well, my wife, I wasn't there when it arrived, received a tremendous rose bouquet, in the vase with a note, congratulations kind of thing.
How did you become aware that your sister was missing?
I got a call on, I believe it was Thursday night, February 4th. That call came into our East Northport home. And I got a call, but it didn't, my wife took the call, she gave the phone to me, and she said, it's Bob. And the next thing I know, I'm on the phone, and she goes, I go, Bob, what's up? He goes, Jim, have you seen Kathy? And I said, no. And he rushed the call and hung up. And that was it. That's how I became aware that she was missing.
Did he explain anything to you during that call?
No.
Did he sound concerned?
Oh, no. He was just, making almost like a casual call. But typical Bob, it was rushed.
Did he sound alarmed in any way?
No.
Did he ask you for any help?
No.
Did you ask him during that call, when is the last time you saw her?
I don't recall asking that question. I was just, Kathy was missing at that point in time. And my wife and I talked briefly, but that's about all.
What was your response after that call? What did you do?
Went to work the next day, had conversations with my sisters. Gilberta was all over it. I guess you know who Gilberta is, and certainly Bob does. And the next thing I know, when it got into the newspapers, it was like a tsunami of impulses from media and requests for interviews, and it came out to my office in New Hyde Park. And it was like, I prayed to God. I said, this is something you read about. It happens to other people, and now it was happening to the McCormack family. And the big question was, what happened to Cathy? Where is she?
Did you end up, after speaking to Mr. Durst, did you end up trying to just call hospitals?
Oh, after that, and after the news tsunami began, I was desperate to find out what happened. Knowing that the New York City Police Department had assigned it to the 20th Precinct, a guy named Detective Struck, I was getting frustrated with no progress. And so I basically picked up a phone, probably from my office, would call. I remember calling Potter's Field for any unclaimed females, description of Cathy. I was calling institutions, Pennsylvania to Massachusetts, for someone who was in there with amnesia and yet was yet to be identified. I was, so stressed.
Was Mr. Durst in contact with you? Are you aware of your family at this time, trying to coordinate the efforts to find his wife?
No. It was like cold and, and just almost like, I tried to call Bob a few times, and it was like a dismissive response, and I don't know, Bing.
In any of those contacts or conversations, did he ever express any concern at all for your sister?
No.
You and your family, is it fair to say that you guys were not wealthy at that time?
No.
Is that a fair statement?
It's a fair statement, even to this day.
People's 24, Mr. McCormack. I have a photograph.
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
Yeah, that's a reward poster that I had put together with the help of an advertising agency, Kurtz and Tarlow, who supported the business enterprise I was working at. And Jerry Hyde became a friend, and he said he just volunteered the resources. We supplied the photograph, which I believe is off of Kathy's, her identification badge from Western Connecticut, and they photoshopped it, or whatever they call it in those days, put together the copy, and, we tried to distribute them as best we could in those days.
The $15,000 reward, who put that up?
It was a combination of a commitment from my mom, what little she had left from when my dad passed away, and she kind of hoarded that, and promises from my wife Sharon's father, who was a successful contractor. He would put some money up, but it was almost like GoFundMe amongst our friends to reach the 15,000. Sadly, it didn't generate any help.
Can you tell me, when is the next contact that you had with Mr. Durst after this?
Other than the phone calls that were, I hate to use the word, but it's true, rudely dismissed and terminated. My sister Mary reached out to Bob, and he had, been...
No, let me stop you. I
Yes.
only want you to, motion to strike the answer is non-responsive.
Oh,
I only
All right,
want you
stricken.
to answer what contact you had. Your
with
sister
Bob.
will testify, and we'll ask her what she knows.
Well, my last contact with Bob was in mid to late March that year at the Lake Truesdale home. And Bob had wanted us to pick up whatever Kathy's stuff was. And all I found up there was a fishing pole, a fishing net, and I think a pair of boots, and that was it.
So let me stop you. How was it that you ended up going up to the Lakeside house?
Well, Bob, like I mentioned, my sister Mary had either heard from Bob or made a call to Bob, and he wanted just to get rid of anything Kathy.
And when was this?
This is mid to late March of 1982.
And when you went up there, the idea was to collect all of her stuff that was there, is that right?
Yeah, clothes, books, whatever. I mean, just to retain them for her.
And you're saying the only thing that was there was,
A fishing pole, a fishing net, things that she and I shared when we went down to the lake side. And I think it was a pair of rubber boots.
did you ask him, where's all my sister's stuff?
And basically, I got a dismissive, I don't know. It was always like, dismissing the question, dismissing the pursuit of finding out what happened to Kathy. Cold.
Did you have contact with the original detective, Mike Struck from NYPD?
Yes, I visited with him on one or two occasions on the 20th precinct on the west side. I think it was about a block and a half away from their Riverside Drive penthouse. And, I practically pleading with him to tell me what progress has he made, what is he doing, and, it's a case, so, it's kind of confidential stuff. And that frustration of not getting anywhere, I did record one or two of those calls. Provided that to Mr. Jarecki. And then the last time I spoke to Detective Struck, I basically ripped his ass out.
When is this?
Middle of that year, when nothing was happening, there was no progress. He wasn't reaching out to me that I know of. I can't remember, but I don't think he did. And the other half of the equation is when he used the phrase, "The file is downtown," and I go, "Well, what's downtown?" And he says, "The cold case." I said, "This is not a cold, I blew up. I apologize, but I blew up. That's my baby sister. It's not a cold case. There's too many suspicious things going on here." And I ripped into him, and I apologize for the verbs I used.
One moment. As you sit here today, Mr. McCormack, if I were to ask you, knowing your sister as you did, if I were to say on a scale of 0 to 100, with 0 being absolutely no way and 100 being, oh, absolutely, I could see that happening, what would you rate the chances of your sister voluntarily abandoning her life on January 31st, 1982?
Opinion?
Overruled, my opinion.
Based on my knowledge of my baby sister Cathy, the answer would be zero. Absolutely no way would she have walked away.
Now, you mentioned that Cathy was planning a birthday party for your grandmother's 90th, is that right?
That's correct.
Was Cathy close to your grandmother?
Oh, yes. Grandma was, she's the one that had the cabin up in Lake Tidiuscan. You know how to spell it now. And that was, you know, probably the only piece of land that our family went to every single year, because I was born in Bed-Stuy in Brooklyn. So was my oldest sister. My other sisters were born in Brooklyn. I mean, we kept moving from one house to another house to another house. And Grandma was the rock that held us together at that place up in Pennsylvania. We'd spend most of the summers up there.
Did the 90th birthday party take place?
No, it did not.
And was that upsetting to your grandmother?
No. She was going on 90, so I think she was a little bit confused by, what was happening.
Let me talk about your mom for a second. Was your mom close to Cathy?
Yes.
Can you tell me what this disappearance did to your mom?
Well, the early days, don't forget I worked in New Hyde Park. Mom lived in New Hyde Park where Cathy was. Her room was still there from when she lived there. And my mom would go upstairs to Cathy's room, and I'd come there after work, and Mom, where are you? She was upstairs, and she was.
I'll give the relevance, Your Honor.
Okay, I'm gonna overrule it.
And Mom would be upstairs crying. And I mean, that was her baby, our baby sister.
Let me ask something. Given the relationship that Cathy had with your mom,
Yes.
would Cathy have been aware that had she just taken off, that it would have a devastating effect on your family and your mom in particular?
Oh, I think, yeah.
352.
Overruled.
If Cathy would have been aware that if she ran away, it would have a devastating effect, of course. She was loved.
Let me ask you, if I were going to ask you right now again on a scale of 0 to 100, with 0 being absolutely no chance and 100 being, oh yeah, Cathy could do that, what are the chances that Cathy would have done that to her mom and your family?
0.
When did your mom pass away?
2016, May of 2016. She was 102 years old.
Did she ever get over the loss of her youngest daughter?
I don't believe so. I think she kind of put it on a shelf at times, but at times, I mean, when I'd go visit my mom, I still remember when she was becoming more infirm, physically more infirm. Her mind was still sharp. I'd go visit her, and she had a room in the back with a TV where she would sit and watch her shows. And first thing she'd have would be the stack of the New York Times weekend edition, which we gave to her as a subscription gift. And she'd have the real estate pages open. And she frequently, and I swear on a Bible, which I already have, the subject would come up and she goes, "Oh, the Dursts, watch yourself, they're powerful people." I mean, that was the way my mom's mind was right into her maybe 100th birthday.
Over this time, I assume that there have been weddings and funerals, including your mom's and your grandmother's, correct?
Right.
Birthdays and holidays. Obviously, Cathy never attended any of those, is that correct?
Absolutely not, no.
At those events, the ones that you came to, was Cathy's absence, was it noticeable and palatable and observed that she wasn't there?
Sustained.
Is there any way, in your opinion, Mr. McCormack, that if your sister were alive, that she would have missed your mom's funeral?
My opinion,
Relevance and
Overruled.
352.
Overruled. You may answer.
in my opinion, if Cathy was with us, she would have never missed her mom's funeral, never.
And as you sit here today, my last question, any doubt in your mind, Mr. McCormack, that your sister is not alive?
There's no doubt. Kathy's not with us, period.
And any doubt in your mind, Mr. McCormack,
No doubt in my mind.
that she died on January 31st, 1982?
There's no doubt in my mind that she died January 31, 1982.
You may cross-examine. Pardon? Mr. Ray?
Go ahead.
Yeah, you're excused. Mr. DeGuerin, you may cross-examine Mr. McCormack.
If you could put that last exhibit back up, please.
You want the flyer?
Yes. And can you enlarge it so we can read the type?
I'm not sure if I can or not. You want this?
Yeah, thanks.
This is People's 24 for the record.
Yeah, good. Thank you. You composed this flyer?
But the agency did.
I'm sorry?
The agency did compose this.
Through information you provided?
Information I provided and, the family provided. The phone number I think we got from Detective Struck.
Chaplain.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, no, that's
Zoom.
yeah. One more. Just one more time.
And the question was, through the information that you provided?
For the most part, I guess my sister Mary would have been involved, my mom. I provided the agency contacts to assemble everything and put together the poster.
About when did you circulate this, or when did you get that information, put the information on it?
Probably, I'm guessing probably late February into March.
After you'd had several meetings with Detective Struck?
Only a couple that I recall. I mean, I had a very busy life, business-wise, and having a brand-new baby, learning how to change diapers, all that stuff.
And you wanted to know what Detective Struck's investigation had revealed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you put your trust in law enforcement. Detective Struck, at that time, was the face of law enforcement on behalf of Cathy.
And so you used some of the information that you got from Detective Struck for the flyer, didn't you?
I would presume so. Some of it, the phone number, at least.
What I'm asking you about is that the words "missing since February 1, 1982," not January 31st, 1982. Have I read that correctly? Missing
Yeah.
since February 1, 1982.
Yeah, the actual missing date is probably misstated, but
But is that information that you got from Detective Struck?
it's possible.
And Detective Struck was developing witnesses that had seen.
Your Honor,
Sustain. Try
can
it
the
again.
jury be instructed immediately, Your Honor? The court's already ruled on this.
Yeah,
That's
it
no
doesn't-
accident.
Yeah, so
It's not an accident.
No, time out.
Door's open.
The door's not open.
Oh,
May we approach, Your Honor?
Will you just relax for a second?
May I speak?
Time out. It's okay.
I'm breathing.
Okay. No, breathe
I'm
more
trying.
More slowly, Mr. DeGuerin. Concentrate on the out breath. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this correctly. Nothing that the attorneys say is evidence. In their opening statements and closing arguments, the attorneys discuss the case, but their remarks are not evidence. Their questions are not evidence. Only the witnesses' answers are evidence. The attorney's questions are significant only if they help you understand the witnesses' answers. Do not assume that something is true just because one of the attorneys asks a question that suggests it's true. Yes, let's go back for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, you may, it's a little early for a break, but you may stand and stretch if you like. No, is it not too late for the break? Let's do the break. Let's make it a little longer. Let's make it a 20-minute break. Do not converse among yourselves or with anyone else on any subject connected with this case. Do not form or express any opinion on the case. And Mr. McCormack, do not discuss your testimony with any other witness between now and the time of your return. I'll let you spend time with the witnesses. George, you may remain for now.
Thank you.